Hello my dear students, hope you are doing well. Today through this video lesson we shall be seeing about a brief introduction regarding Afro-American literature, and this would be an introductory part for the course title Afro-American Literature with its code 17CL311, and this is meant for the class 2nd M English. And the topics that we are going to discuss today are colonization, post-colonization and African-American literature. And regarding colonization, what do you think about colonization? We all have heard about colonization, but we haven't experienced about colonization. Because we live in a country that was once colonized, but our forefathers, they fought a lot and they gained our independence. So we are also a part in colonization. And I thought of talking about, before going into Afro-American literature, I thought of introducing you about colonization and post-colonization. So if I give you some light towards colonization and post-colonization, I thought that it would be easy for you to know about or to gain some knowledge about Afro-American literature. And colonization, what is colonization? It has its meaning in its name. Colony, keeping one's colony upon another one's colony. Forcibly thrusting one's colony upon another one's colony. By controlling them, gaining power through that colony. And controlling those people, those indigenous people, the people who belong to that particular place. Natives of that particular country, controlling those people is nothing but colonization. And colonization is used for various reasons. But the one thing behind colonization is that they wanted to gain power. And to gain power, they control the political background of the country. They control the government of the country. They start governing the particular country into which they enter into. And also, they curb their economy. They swindle their economy. So, they make those people dependent upon the particular colonizers. So, economically, they weaken the particular country. Politically, they start controlling those people. And also religion. So in the name of religion also people enter into one's country. And also religion plays a vital role in colonization, I would say. And religion, through missionaries, so many the colonizers entered into another country and colonized those people. They wanted to change so many people into their religion. So for their bulk conversion, they went and colonized people and made them think their own religion as inferior religion, and they converted those people to their own religion. And also their cultural practices. The culture was said to be a poor culture. The colonized people culture was said to be a poor culture. So what you are practicing is not good. See how barbarous your attitude is, how superstitious your beliefs are. They made them think that their culture is inferior culture. And so they made them think their culture is a bad culture. But ultimately the aim of colonization is extending territory, and extending territory is nothing but to gain power, to be the powerful country among all the other countries. So that was their main intention. And what happened after colonization? In colonized countries, people were not happy. The culture was abolished, they lost their identity, and at the same time, rich people were getting richer, were getting powerful, were very happy. Where on the other hand, the proletariat, they were not happy. They lost their happiness, they lost their identity, whereas the bourgeois people, they joined hands with these colonizers, and they were very happy. And also ultimately the other people, they started rejecting colonizers, especially Western culture. in one way or the other, till now, even after colonization, it has become a part and parcel of their life. But then during colonization, they rejected Western culture, and ultimately they protested against colonizers. And these colonizers, they too had their own reason. And when these colonizers were asked about for what reason you are colonizing these people, they would say that we are sacrificing our lives. So there is a very good quote that white man's burden. They would say that we are shouldering their burden. We are sacrificing ourselves by taming those savages, by giving literacy to those savages, to those animal people. They were not treated as human beings. They were barbarians. If they are not tamed, they would be very much harmful to other people. So, and also they do not know how to tame themselves. So we are there, and we make people to behave like human beings, they would say. And also these people, they say that their religious beliefs had so many superstitious reasons, and we want to change them. And also the culture was not good. They had so many things going on in them, so we want to change them. And these things you'll be able to see when you have, if you have read Things Fall Apart, very good novel. So here mentioned the 5 reasons you'll be able to see in the Things Fall Apart. They'll be having different custom, they'll be having a different religion, their own gods, their own costumes and everything, but they were happy with what they had. But when the people, the colonizers, entered into their village in the name of refining their religion, they lost their peace, they lost their life. Finally, the Igbo community leader who is mentioned that he would finally lose his life. So this is what happened in many countries, especially in Africa. So as we are saying about Afro-American literature, so you'll be able to understand if you read those books. So you have to read. You should not read the book that was written by another white man or another man about African countries, because they mention those people as black continent people. But they were not so. When you read those books, you will not think so. You will feel pity for those people, and also you'll be amazed when you read the text of those people, how intelligent they are, how clever they are, how knowledgeable they are. You'll be able to think. And regarding British colonization, and Africa was colonized by many countries for their wealth. And here I would like to talk about Britishers, because they were the primary force when it comes to colonization, and we too have experienced it, right? And these Britishers, they wanted to extend their territory, they wanted to sustain their power, and for that they colonized people. And the main thing that they have done that was that they showed their cruel face towards their natives, towards the natives, the indigenous people who lived there. And also they exploited, they took their wealth, the economy, they made the people poor people. And also regarding British colonization, it started capturing countries from 1880s, and they mainly, all the European countries, they mainly targeted towards African land for its wealth. And also the people were not so much educated, so much of the people did not have so much of knowledge, they were not that much educated. So these African lands were of much targeted by those people. And the European colonial empire just came to an end only in 1975, and we got our freedom just 1949, right? So it came to an end. These colonial empire, by capturing countries, it came to an end 1945. And post-colonialism, what's post-colonialism? So when you talk about colonialism, naturally you should know about post-colonialism. So post-colonialism, after colonialism, but people would say that this post-colonial period started right from the colonial period. So if you want to know about post-colonial period, you should be familiar about colonial period. And the writers the post-colonial writers who talk about post-colonialism, they would start to write about the period of colonialism too. And post-colonialism, people are not happy during post-colonialism because they lost their identity. Their culture was changed, their religion was taken from them, and everything. Their wealth was taken from them, and everything. So, and these people, these African people, they settled in America. And USA was also under the control of Britishers, and they too got their independence like us. And when they got their independence, actually in USA, Red Indians were the natives. But white people, they went and settled there, and African people also settled there. But these African people were not treated as equals, though they were given voting rights and everything. Literally, they were treated equally, but not in real sense. And post-colonialism. The post-colonialism refers to the collection of theoretical and critical strategies used to examine the culture of former colonies of the European empires and their relation to the rest of the world. So literature, through politics, through history and so on, the country was completely changed. The history of the country was completely changed. So the people were somewhat different before colonization. But after colonization, they were not what they were. They have been completely changed after post-colonization. And this particular word, post-colonization, was coined by a man, French demographer called Alfred Sauvé. And these post-colonial writers, they used to write to take back their culture. They lost their culture completely. Now they are in the culture that they do not belong to. But during post-colonialism, they experience it because they have lost everything. They have lost their identity, and if they want to have their identity back, they should regain their culture. And for that purpose, they would try in every means to resurrect their culture back, to gain back, to give life to their culture. Okay. And in post-colonialism, another thing is that there is a cultural overlap. They talk about cultural overlap. The culture that they were once in was replaced by another culture. So there has been a hybridity of two cultures. So they do not belong to this culture or that culture. They belong to both the cultures. So that is a problem for them. They cannot say that I belong to this culture, I belong to that culture. So there is an amalgamation of two cultures. So that is the problem for them. And also they talk about their social, psychological and cultural inferiority, because their culture was said to be an inferior culture. So they talk about these things or not. And moving on to key terms in post-colonialism. So these are the terms that are mostly used in post-colonialism, like ambivalence, alterity, exoticism, hegemony, very important word, hybridity. When you think about hybridity, the third space and all, it'll be talking about Homi Bhabha, Gayatri Spivak, and so many good writers in post-colonialism. Mimicry, abrogation. And ambivalent, when you talk about ambivalence, is nothing but a mixed feeling about blessing and curse. Mixed feeling. So in one way, they would feel that they are blessed because they have got education from them, and through education they were exploring their world. And another thing is that it has become, at the same time, it has become their curse. Bane as well as boon. Bane. So they were not able to take them as a boon or else as a bane. They are sticking in between. And alterity is state of being different or other. So already we have seen they have lost their identity. And also exoticism, they were made to feel that their culture is an inferior culture. And hegemony, very important thing. And what we are studying today, what the colonized people are studying today, are not the one that was once taught in their own country. So everything that is being taught now is being written, or it belonged to another country. It was just told by the European people. And also social media play a vital role regarding colonized and colonizers' identity. And hybridity is nothing but, already we have seen, cross-culturalism, trans-structuralism, crossing of two cultures. And mimicry, They have lost their identity. They are behaving like some other people now because they have lost their identity. They are not what they are. And abrogation, refusal of language. So the colonized people, they feel ashamed to talk in their own language because people are made to think inferior about their language. Some other language, the colonizers' language, were made to think as a superior language and not the colonized people's language. So the same thing, even Indians, even when you are hearing about this, you'll be able to realize it. I hope. And now we are entering into Afro-American literature or African American literature. And African American literature is consists of a good number of works written by the writers who belong to Africa, but they would have been settled in United States. Their origin would be in Africa, but they would have been the citizens of the United States of America. So these writers were called as Afro-American writers. And the first published work in Afro-American literature was the novel was during 18th century, and the first published novel is Our Nig, that was published in the year 1859 by Harriet Wilson. Nig means, you'll be able to guess, nigger. So it is an abusive word for black people. Our Nig. And you'd be having the question, why do I have to learn African American literature? The answer is, already whatever you have heard about African people were written or was told only by some other one who do not belong to Africa. But now you're going to read the works that are written by African people. So you'll be able to understand their sufferings, their needs and everything through their writings. So for a better understanding as a literature student, you should study Afro-American literature. And also it will be very useful for your upcoming NET and SET exams too. And to talk about another thing, they have suffered a lot, these people, more than us, I would say. These people, because we were not treated like animals, I would say. But these people who had different type of costumes and everything made other people treat them so. And other people, the colonizers, they thought these people are savages and they were treated so. They were not treated like human beings. They were beaten up like anything. They were beaten up. They were chained and everything. They were tortured like anything. Even animals are not tortured so, I would say. So when you read those people, you'll be able to feel empathy, and also you'll be able to realize how our forefathers have got freedom, how our forefathers have tolerated the sufferings and struggled a lot to attain this freedom. So you'll be having empathy and compassion to others. And also you'll be having the different type of experience, right? When you read about other literature, when you talk about their culture, their religion, their beliefs and everything. So it is, you'll be having new enlightenment. And to go into Afro-American literature, the history, it starts 3 years before American independence. The history of Afro-American writing starts 3 years before American independence. And when you begin Afro-American writings, the one who comes to your mind is Phyllis Wheatley. And this writer, this poet, extraordinary writer, she's a woman. She is a very good writer. And to talk about her, she was taken as a slave, right, when she was 6 years old, and she was enslaved during her young age, and she was under slavery when she was in her young age. She did not know how to speak English or how to write English. But when she was taken as a slave, she got mastered in that English language, and when she was 16 years old, she was completely mastered in English language. See, she wanted to write in English language because she got mastered, and also she wanted to express her feelings to other people through in their language, because that language would be read by so many people, and also she wanted to express her feelings to those people who would read a lot. and she started writing in English. She has started writing poem, and so many people who belong to American Revolution, who were the leading figures of American Revolution, like George Washington. He personally thanked her for writing a poem that she has written in honor of him. And also many white people also, they liked her poems, but there were several white people who doubted her poems. They had opinion that black women, they do not have knowledge, that much of knowledge to write poems. So they doubted whether it was a poem that was written by her or not. So they made her to come to court and prove that it was a poem that was written by her. So she patiently attended the trial. She proved herself that she has written all those poems on her own, and after that only she got recognition, it seems. And some critics, they cite that Whitley's successful defense was the first recognition for African American literature, they would say, because she has suffered a lot. She had the need to prove herself, and that was the seed that was first sown for Afro-American literature. And moving on to next, there was a subgenre for Afro-American literature, and that was none other than slave narrative. A slave would narrate their own experience, and very good book is Uncle Tom's Cabin, that was written in the year 1852. And also, in Northern America, there were so many slaves, some 6,000 former slaves. After their slavery, they have started writing, and Caribbean people, they also have started writing, and they registered their experience as a slave. Right from the young age, they would have been abducted as a slave, and they would have toiled in that slavery life. So they have registered that in pamphlets and books and everything, and nearly 150 types of books and pamphlets were published regarding that, and that was called a slave narrative. And moving on to next thing, American Civil War. American Civil War was the main reason for the abolition of slavery in the United States. And white people, after the colonization has been ended, these people, African people, they settled in America, but they had the torture of something called racism. And slavery came to an end in United States through American Civil War that happened between the Union and the 11 Southern slave states. And the Union was headed by Abraham Lincoln. And the slavery has come to an end. And during that period also, post-slavery era also, there were so many writers, W.E.B. Du Bois, and her essays entitled The Souls of Black Folk was very much famous. Du Bois was very much famous, and the famous quote of Du Bois is, "The problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line." See how beautifully it was written. Color line. There is a problem in the 21st century, and the very big problem that is going on is the color line. The line that has been drawn between black people and white people is the color line. And moving on to another writer, Marcus Garvey. He's a Jamaican writer, and he was the one who made people to write about Africa, about their culture, and that was called as Back to Africa. He made people to write about Africa. And other peoples, they were writing about their sufferings, their experiences, and all such things. But he said that no, we have to write about our own culture, our own religion. We have to talk about our own self. So you just go back, dig up your culture, explore, and express it to other people, he just said. And other famous writers of that time are Booker T. Washington and Charles W. Chesnutt. Chesnutt you would have heard. And moving on to Harlem Renaissance. Harlem Renaissance, it should be called as a turning point, biggest turning point, because African people, they started mentioning about or expressing their art their performance, their songs and everything, blues, jazz and everything, and that has been accepted, or that has become a part and parcel of American culture. And during that period only, during the 20th century period only, the mid of 20th century period only, it has been accepted or observed into American culture. And the very famous writer, the poet who belongs to Harlem Renaissance is none other than Langston Hughes. And his 1922 poetry collection, the famous poetry collection, is none other than the Book of American Negro Poetry. And when you talk about Harlem Renaissance, the one who comes to your mind should be Zora Neale Hurston. She's a novelist, but during her period she was not that much famous because her writings are somewhat different. So African writers, they did not consider her as a very good writer, but then Alice Walker, she turned up and she read those books and she edited those books, and she made Zora popular. And the very famous classic novel of Zora is Their Eyes Were Watching God, that was written in the year 1937. And regarding Zora, we have got a prose piece in our paper, Afro-American paper, Zora's prose piece. It is a very good prose piece. Should completely be different. Should be mentioning about her own experience as a small kid who was sitting on her parapet and watching white strangers. It was completely different to read. So she didn't express about her sufferings, her slavery, and all such things. She was mentioning about her own experience. So it was good to read. You shall just read and relish. But then her language would be too good to read. And moving on to civil rights movement era, after World War I and World War II, African people, they had great migration, and first they settled in Northern America, and after that they started moving to Southern America, and they started settling in places like Chicago. But many people, they did not like white people. But then these people, they settled there, and they felt very much good after settling in southern parts of America. And the writer who is very famous during the time is James Baldwin, and we have a prose piece of James Baldwin in one of our units. And James Baldwin, he used to talk about race and sexuality. He is a homosexual too, so he used to talk about all such things in his writings. So though he was much condemned, his writings were too good. When you read about his prose, he would mention about his experience, racial experience. And also, you'd be able to understand how knowledgeable the particular man is when you read his English. Okay. So when I teach my students about when your seniors, I would be mentioning how knowledgeable. So intentionally, he has expressed his English knowledge in his prose, I would say, because he wants to prove himself how knowledgeable he is through his text. Because when he talk or when he mention it to others, they won't accept, right? So when it is registered in writings, they'll be able to understand. So whoever reads it after so many years, they will be able to understand the intellect of the particular man. So only for that reason, he would have written in that complicated, beautiful English language, I would say. And moving on to Richard Wright. Richard Wright, his very famous work is Native Son. It was written in the year 1940. And Richard Wright also we have in our paper, Afro-American Literature. And Richard Wright's short stories we have. And Richard Wright, he used to, the short stories, we have a short story called My Sweet Jerome and other short stories, and in those short stories he used to talk about the women, African women. Those African women were not, they endured sufferings not because of white man, but also because of black man also. Her own or their own black men, they torture them. So they experience all such things and they come up in their life. And some people, they lose their lives too. So all such things are mentioned by Richard Wright. Very good writer. Very good. All those works are very good to read. And also, when you read some works, you will shed tears. That much they have been tortured. And during civil rights movement era, Martin Luther is also a prominent person. Luther King Jr. is also. and his letter from Birmingham jail is a prominent one. And moving on to the recent one, when you talk about Afro-American literature, it be the names that blink in your mind is none other than Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, Rita Dove, and all such writers. Rita Dove, very famous poet. And Toni Morrison's Beloved you have in your Afro-American paper, and she is famous for her Blue West Side too. And she has received a Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 1988 and Nobel Prize for Literature in 1993. And Alice Walker's, she too has received a Pulitzer Prize, and her novel, The Color Purple, is very much famous. She would, in that novel also, she would have written about the sufferings of black women, how they were brutally tortured physically and mentally. So, very pitiable novel. Pitiable characters would be there, but then your mother will be there. She would raise her kid in a very good way, and she will come up in her life, a true woman like that. Okay. And epistolary novel, you would be able to see epistolary novel, that is in The Color Purple. Epistolary, in the letter form it will be there. And moving on to next one, Rita Dove, the poet laureate in America during 93 to 95. She too has won Pulitzer Prize. And characteristics of Afro-American literature, that these things they will talk identity, because they have lost their identity. They would they try to regain their identity back through their culture, by expressing their culture, their own religion, their own custom, their own people, and all such things. By mentioning about everything, they feel proud about their religion. They try to take back their pride in their religion, because they were made to feel inferior about themselves, but they try to regain it back by writing their own thoughts about their own country. And also their writings will be colorful. As I have mentioned about Richard Wright's works, the women of Africa, they be fond of gaudy colors that we say, red, orange, like that. But there is nothing wrong in it, right? So there will be the colors will be prominent there, and creative language would be there. And also they intentionally mention about their religious imagery in songs, their own customs, their own instruments, their own ornaments, and all such things. And also final thing is that theme would be indirectly they always or directly they always mention about freedom and independence. So I hope through this presentation you'll be able to get something about a brief introduction about Afro-American literature. See you in next video presentation. Thank you.